Hey, Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. I really am excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Felicia. I'm excited to be here too. Always love
Yeah.
speaking with women.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I did your introduction already. Everybody knows you're the CEO of your Sugo Capital, and you did the Confident Investor series, educational series, which is really, really cool. Let's talk about you a little bit, though, more
Okay.
about your money story and where you came from. Were you born with tons of money and knowing about real estate and investing, or is this something you had to come, you grew into like
Yeah, it's
people and
something
stuff?
that I grew into, and then it went full circle back to my parents. Once I learned a bunch of new stuff, I went back to them. So I was born not with a ton of money, but not with no money, just
Yeah.
normal middle class, and definitely taught like you're not going to get any money from us being my family. So make your space in the world. And the best way to do that is through education. So I was like straight A student. Best thing I can do is get straight A's, go to a great college, get a great job. And so that was my path. And then I was working. I was like, wow, living in California and having this great job, I live paycheck to paycheck, even though it's a great job with a great salary. So I'm gonna have to do something else. And what I knew was more education is how you get more money. So I
Uh-huh.
went and got an MBA, and then I got the better job, manager, senior manager, director. And then I was like, cool, I can finally buy a house and all this stuff and, had a family. But I was still basically living paycheck to paycheck. And I
Yeah.
didn't have money that I was putting away or investing every year. And so I was like,
You
"Oh,
did not have, you were not doing that. You were just wo-
no." I just when I had a
working
larger
and living.
paycheck, I bought a
Yeah.
bigger house
Mm.
and took a vacation. And it was a very modest vacation, but when I was living in Silicon Valley, and so I looked at other people who were staying home during the day, and I said, "What are you guys doing?" And they had either made money in some tech startup and they invested it in real estate, or they made their money in real estate.
Okay.
But everyone was like real estate, passive income real estate. Like you can make a chunk of money other ways, but then you put it in real estate for passive income. So I was like, oh, okay. And then someone gave me the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Hmm.
And I read that just after my first daughter was born. And I was like,
Yeah.
right. I was like, I'm doing this all wrong. And so, long story short, we tried a whole bunch of different things. We went through all their coaching programs. I took coaching programs from a whole bunch of other different outfits out there. You see them all.
Yeah.
So I took over 15 different coaching programs on different kinds of real estate investments, and I tried and dabbled in a bunch of things, and they were not right for me, like duplexes and fourplexes outside of California where I was living. Had some catastrophes all over the place, but eventually I found my way to syndications. And that's hands off, passive. You roughly double your money in 5 years. You can use your IRA, your 401k, LLCs. And I was like, oh, this is what works for me. And so you mentioned the Confident Investor series, and what we love to do is help people find the path that's right for them. So
Okay.
even though my path led to multifamily syndications, other people's path might lead to Airbnbs or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And so
Yeah.
it's all about like figuring out what your goals are, where you're at, what your strengths and capabilities are, and then choosing investments that or in line with your gifts, capabilities, your time available, your goals, because everyone has different goals or in different stages in life. So that's what we love to do with a confident investor is like help people make their way to the right investment. And if it's with us, we help them. And then if it's not, we point them in a different direction. So that was my path. And so I love helping people on that same path.
So
Yeah.
the things that resonate with me, number one, Rich Dad Poor Dad, because my I do the exact same thing when I like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's like it's about the mindset and just understanding how money works a little bit better. There's
Hmm.
not a lot of
Yeah.
details on what to do in that book, but
No.
it's just teaching you some new words that you don't learn in college anyway.
Yeah.
And then you went same I didn't do this first. First, I invested in a bunch of stuff and lost a bunch of stuff, a lot of disasters. But you got the mentorship first. It sounds like you went through a bunch of different courses. We ultimately did that too. Let me ask you this, if you can remember, because I know we spend the money on those things and you forget how much it was. How much money do you think in total for
Ooh,
your mentorship and education to
you
get to
know,
where to get to decide where you really wanted to be?
I'd say a lot. So between 30 and 50,000 per course, I did, well, some of them it was like you did the 3-day for 5,000, and some of them I did the 50,000 year-long coaching,
Yeah.
probably 200,000
Yeah. It's
among,
expensive.
yeah, among all the coaching and mentorship. And when I was like, you hear someone and you're like, that sounds great. I'm going to do that thing. And you don't
Yeah.
realize that's one of 20 choices you might have.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things we do also in this Freedom and Free video series that I have the QR code for is the second day I have a sheet and it's like, here are 15 different types of investments. And here's the cash flow. Here's the appreciation. Here's the money needed to get started. Here's the tax benefit. Because I felt like I went through and I spent that $200,000 because I didn't know that there were other things. Like I heard of
Yeah.
one thing. I was like, this is the thing. I didn't know about it. Like, oh, I'm so excited. And I did it and it wasn't right. And then I heard about another thing. But if I had started with knowing that there are so many ways to invest in real estate or even invest in general,
Yeah.
and starting with my goals and then finding what matches, if I had done that, I wouldn't have paid that 200 grand.
But may or may not, because we never know. We
We
just
never
like,
know, but I probably would have not chosen several things
yeah,
that
some of those, yeah.
they were obviously not right, but I just saw the number, like the amount of money you could make or the ROI and not realizing, oh, but it requires this amount of time or this skill or this personality trait. Wholesaling, I'm not a hustler. Like that is so uncomfortable to me. So wholesaling, not a fit, but it's a great fit for some people.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Okay. Got it.
Mhm.
So we, you and I have both spent a lot of money on educating ourselves, and we can look back on it like, well, that was a mistake. If I had known this, I would have never done that. And
But in the end,
part
it was all
of
worth it.
you 100% all you learn from everything.
Mhm, mhm.
Part of, I think, both of our goals is to help other people and women do the same thing without having to make as many mistakes
Yes.
and lose as much money or spend as much money, because
Yeah,
is it ever really lost? Because it's those really, really painful, expensive ones that you learn the best.
that's true.
However, you can
Mhm.
borrow some of my pain, you can borrow some of Sarah's pain, and
Oh,
we can
man,
help
that's the
you
best way,
not do
borrow
those
someone else's
things.
pain.
So now you're doing the syndications, and
Yes,
you're living in California,
yes,
Northern California, San Francisco area.
yes,
Yes?
yes.
And all your investments are in California, right?
No, not a chance, not a chance. So many reasons. The economics, the politics, and I don't mean Republican, Democratic, the landlord-tenant politics, definitely not landlord. It's so unfair to the landlord in California. And the straight up economics don't work. I have our syndications, they target doubling your money in 5-ish years
Uh-huh.
and the cash flow in the meantime. And so that's the
Right?
syndication. You're not going to make crazy money on them, but they're passive and they're in Texas and Sun Belt and they're chugging along. And then in California, I have a friend who he bought a 10-unit apartment complex, was a small one in Sacramento, and he pays $15,000 a month to cover the mortgage. But he knew it. It's not an accident. He knew it before making the purchase that he was going to have to pay out of pocket to keep this property going. And I'm like, why in California would you? He's like, oh, appreciation. But a lot of people do that in California where they're banking on appreciation. They're paying in the meantime to own this
Yes.
asset and they have to deal with
Yes.
the tenants and the crazy California rules around all of that. So, not a chance would I invest in anywhere actually on the West Coast.
So let's talk about that, your friend that invested, because
Yeah.
we both talk to people about cash flow. It is about having money coming in,
Yes.
passive income, not money going out,
No.
and you're having to keep a project, you may have to do that. We may have to do that for a while in a syndication.
Yes.
Sometimes it happens. But
Yes.
to step into it and know I'm negative cash flow, $15,000 a month, with the for the gamble that this is going to appreciate. Not he probably doesn't even necessarily have an idea of how long he plans to hold that and how many 15,000s he's gonna be spending over the lifetime of that
Right.
deal,
Correct.
and that's just the known. The other things about California, if all his tenants decide to stop paying, now
Oh,
he's
well,
gotta
now you got a bigger
come
mortgage to
come
carry.
up with more and deal with more legal kind of deal with legal kind of things of potentially working to get those folks out, which California makes difficult to do.
Exactly.
And nobody wants to kick, and like, so people are gonna start thinking you just want to be a mean landlord and kick people out, and that's not what it is. But if people don't pay, this is your business. People don't pay to live in the property you provided for them and don't want to work with you to figure out how to pay if they come upon hard times, because it happens. We
Yeah.
get it. Then they shouldn't live there. There's got to be something else to do. And California makes that very, very difficult for you to maintain your stuff.
Yeah, it's very true. And there's a mentality of like, oh, the rich landlord, so the tenant should have the rights. But it doesn't account for the fact that a lot of acquisitions are made within groups. So, like in a
Correct. By
syndication,
syndication.
and
Correct.
you might have 20 investors who came in together and they're all using their retirement funds. So they're retired people who worked their whole life for this money, and now a tenant's not paying. So now this person who's been working all their life and now they're retired, now they don't get the cash flow for their life. So the ripple effect is real. It's not like there's one single rich landlord who gets a little bit less money this month. It can be a ripple
Be
effect to the retirement community.
perfect. That's the thing to remember, because I know a lot of us can start watching politics on TV and hear about different things and think the rich are just stealing from everybody else. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes. It's not, you can't explain it all on in a sound bite on a television program, but we have to think past what's being sold to us. I'm sorry. We're not going to go into that. Anyway,
I agree with you on that, though. Definitely.
so talk about this. We talked about syndications.
Yep.
Syndications are when a group of people come together to buy a thing. That thing has been found and vetted and looked at and figured out how it's going to operate by the general partner,
Hmm.
who then looks to raise funds and help other people invest in that are going to be more passive. Your active role in that syndication is figuring out, does this work in your life? And once you figured it out and you've invested your money, you sit back and collect your reports and collect your money.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really great explanation.
The biggest thing I love about syndication is the person that you're investing with.
Mm.
The property, which is actually less important than the person.
Agreed, 100%.
You want to have that person's phone in your number in your phone so you can call them when you don't understand something. And that's
Mhm.
not what you have with your 401k. You just don't. So this is why I'm so much on real estate and passive income and having these kinds of things happening. You can invest in other places, like Sarah said, or in Texas. You said Texas and the Sun Belt, which
Mhm.
is, what's the Sun Belt? Arizona.
No, so southeast.
Okay.
Southeast, yep, so we have stuff in Florida, we used to have stuff in the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama.
Okay. And you've done multifamily, which is apartments, and
Mhm.
some energy things.
Yes.
And all of it is about, we want to have cash flow and appreciation and tax benefits.
You got it.
Guys, if you don't know, and if you haven't figured out that taxes are your biggest expense in your lifetime and figured out how to pay less
Mhm,
is your job.
mhm.
And then
100%.
everybody gets feeling sick to their stomach about paying less in taxes because then this doesn't happen and that doesn't.
Yeah.
I go ahead, Sue. Like, you're
Well,
right.
yeah, I know that's exactly right. Is we always look for there are lots of investments out there, right? So a lot of people say, "Oh, Sugo Capital, you have some verticals, but why don't you expand into like VC or stocks or whatever it is?" And you're exactly right. What I love for myself and what I love for my investors is an investment that does those three things. It has some cash flow, it has a tax advantage, and it has appreciation. And real estate does that. A lot of oil and gas investments have that as well. Not all of them in either category, but the ones that we choose and the way we structure the syndications is so that they have all three, so that someone can put together a portfolio where it's like, oh, okay, I saved some money this year. So it's more I can reinvest. I have my cash flow I can live off of. And there's inflation, right? So if I only have cash flow from my investment and then I spend it all, then when there's inflation, I'm not going to have enough in the future. So you need appreciation in your portfolio and you need cash flow if you're not working, right? So both are really important.
Very good. Do you talk to people about taxes, or you're
Yes.
not an accountant, right?
I'm an accountant.
I'm not an accountant either, but
No.
we could talk generally about taxes and how
Mhm.
that particular investment may affect your portfolio, but everyone needs a very good tax person.
Yes,
And it's not just
definitely.
about it's not just about April 15th or October 15th or whenever you do your thing. It's a management thing all along.
All along, and it changes. So when we started in 2019, there was 100% bonus depreciation, and then it's been phasing out, and then who knows with the election if that's gonna change, and maybe 1031 exchange goes away, and maybe how we use the benefits we get from oil and gas investing might change. So it's not like, "Oh, I learned a thing and I have a strategy and now I'm good to go for life." It's like you
Yeah.
have to pay attention because every year your strategy might change. And so I was like, "La, la, la, I've got my bonus appreciation, I have my real estate and I'm good to go." And then it's like, "Oh, boom, boom, boom. Now
Yeah.
it's only 50% or 40% of what I invest comes through as a tax benefit." And so yeah, you're definitely right. So, with all of our investors on all of our projects, we say, okay, here's the tax benefit of this investment. Here's how you can use it. This one, the real estate syndications, if you're not a real estate professional, it only can reduce your passive income tax. And then if you invest in the oil, the energy, you can reduce your W 2 or your AGI, your active income bucket. And so being able to know, like, oh, I have taxes in this bucket or this bucket, so I need to pick an investment that affects the correct bucket.
Yeah.
Um, that's really important. And I think it's on day 3 of this 3-day video series that I pointed to earlier, where we talk about like what investments fit with which kind of income so you can make sure and choose. Because the worst thing is when someone hears, oh, there's a tax benefit and they try to apply it, they invest with their IRA, but they want to use it to reduce the taxes on their LLC and you can't mix and
Yeah.
match. It's so important to
Yeah.
learn. Yeah.
Understanding all those things is very
Hmm.
important.
Hmm.
You threw out some words that I don't know that everybody understands. Number one, bonus depreciation, and then
Hmm.
1031 exchange.
Yeah.
Explain both of those for us.
Yeah. So when you buy real estate and other things, but I'll use real estate as an example, you can either depreciate it over a long period of time, or you can do so every year you take a bit of depreciation for a long period of time. Now we don't own our apartment complexes for a long period of time, so that's not extremely useful to us. But you can do something called a cost segregation analysis. Well, you can't, but a CPA can do it for you, where they look at this piece of real estate and certain elements of it can be fully appreciated. It's called accelerated depreciation into that first year of ownership instead of it being drug out over a number of years. And so it's a deferral strategy. It's not a tax elimination strategy, it's a tax deferral strategy. But so say you invest $100,000 in an apartment syndication, it's very feasible that in that year, so say you invest in 2024 on your K1, you could have negative $50,000 on your K1, meaning you didn't lose value of your investment, but you have a paper loss from that depreciation, from that cost segregation analysis, the accelerated depreciation that's passed through to the individual investors via the entity structure. Every investor is a part owner, so it's pro rata. Okay, you own this much, you get this much of the depreciation, which is a tax benefit to you. So especially for real estate investors, it's really strong because you can use that against to reduce the tax on your active income. If you're not, you can only use it on your passive income, but it's being phased out. So it's a really strong rule. And we use it a lot to sell something instead of paying capital gains. If you then reinvest it and use the bonus depreciation, it can offset your capital gains tax. And so that's what we used personally for everything that we were selling and buying at Sugo Capital, and most of our investors did.
Hmm.
And then now they're phasing it out. They're like, maybe we should get rid of this rule. So instead of potentially 100%, it's being reduced. So I think it's down to 40% this year. Maybe it's going to go away. Maybe it's going to come back. But that's one way to reduce your taxable income. And it was really strong if somebody was selling, say they had a fourplex and they're like, I'm just so tired of owning this fourplex. I want to go into a syndication because it's passive. I'm not on the loan. I don't have to deal with the tenants. Can you help me, Sarah? And I go, yep, here's a syndication. So they sell their fourplex, they roll into a passive income, and they would use the depreciation to offset the capital gains tax they would pay on their fourplex. That's
Okay.
one way to reduce the capital gains. And then another way is the 1031 exchange, which we both hit on. And So that one, you can 1031 exchange into syndications. Normally, you need $1 million or more because you set up a tenant in common structure and it's a bit more complicated. There's legal costs and that sort of thing involved. Or what you can do is you can say, well, I'm owning this fourplex, I'm going to sell it and I'm going to buy a 10plex and I'm going to take the gains from this one and buy this new one. And then you don't have to pay taxes on the gains from that
Yeah.
fourplex.
Another tax deferral strategy.
Another tax deferral strategy.
And
Yeah.
for anybody who's just heard that, the 1031 is not something you can do by yourself. There's an
Correct.
intermediary in there that has to help you do that.
Mhm.
So
And
both
there's
of
a time
those,
limit. You have to get that intermediary before you make your sale. A lot of
yeah,
times people call me like, "I sold it last week. I got this money. I went 1031 exchange and it's your syndication." And it's like, no, you have to have it all set up before your sale.
over. Yep. And I
Mhm.
had I'm selling some stuff now, the opportunity 1031. I was just like, this is a pain in the butt. I'll figure out some other kind of way to
Yeah.
deal with these taxes. And that's just me because it's just more detail that I don't want to deal with. There's a lot of time pressure on it to me.
Yes. Yes. You have
Um,
45 days to identify your new property, and so that's stressful.
it's just, no. Um, so people think about depreciation. You love the way you explain that. And then that you actually explain how you actually make money with depreciation because you said it, and I just want to make sure people really get that it's a loss on paper because it sounds like depreciation. That means I lose something.
Mm.
Go ahead, explain that a little more.
Yeah. So you're not depreciating the entire investment necessarily, but it's pieces of that investment. So it's like the refrigerator in all the 200 units each have a refrigerator. So it's more complicated than that. But basically, it's not saying the whole value of the apartment complex is less. It's saying certain pieces or elements of that asset are being depreciated up front. And so when it comes through on your K1 as a loss, it's just a paper loss. So it's saying that, say you invest 100, you get the 50K loss, and now your new balance is 50K. It just is just paper accounting. So
It's
it
pay
doesn't mean if you turned around and sold the asset that you would only get 50K. You could turn around, sell the asset and get 150K for your investments, and then you'd have had 100K gain because now your new
Yes,
capital balance is 50K.
yes.
But you get to reduce that. That's reduces your taxable income by the 50K. So it doesn't save you 50K in taxes. It reduces your
It
taxable income by 50K. So whatever
for
you
your this we're not tax advisors,
yeah,
guys.
yeah, yeah,
We
for your
sponsor this
passive,
stuff, so
unless you're a
you
real
gotta
estate investor.
go to your account, really check
Yeah.
all this out, but it's
Mhm,
just that it took me a while to get that concept of
mhm.
depreciation actually being it's a phantom income is what they call it, so
Yes. And
uh,
it's really important to make sure your CPA really does understand it because I spend a lot of time with our investors' CPAs and I have events for our investors' CPAs where my CPA for our projects, we have investor CPAs come so that they can explain firsthand, like, here's how your client can use the tax benefits. Because a lot of people aren't used to seeing K1s from alternative assets. They're like, wait, how I don't think you can use any of this. And then there's tax code. My CPA will tell them, they're like, oh, okay, you can use this.
yeah,
Especially in the oil and gas space. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't think we can use this when you definitely can.
oil and oil and gas, again, I'm gonna just keep on saying we're not accountants, but that's the
Okay.
one that you can use to offset your W-2 income,
Yes.
and it's set up. The other thing I wanna get into is how we get all worked up about the rules changing. The rules change all the time,
Yep.
and I tell people, I just need to know what the rules are, and I'll figure out
Right.
how to play the game.
Yes.
And that's the bottom line of it. So it's like, we don't have time to get worked up on a lot of things that people are worked up about because just
Hmm.
tell me what the rules are.
Yeah.
Stop
Like,
effing around and tell me the rules so that we can know the game we're playing.
yeah.
And that's the biggest thing right there. Is just you need people on your team who can, all right, these are the new rules. Here's how we're going to deal with all these things. And it's not illegal. It's written down. It tells you how to play the game. And
Yes.
that's the bottom line. And you want, again, people on your team. We don't, as physicians, as lawyers, as professionals out there doing our job, we don't have time to figure out how to make the rules work. That's why you need people like Sarah, you need a great accountant, you need a great team to help
Yeah.
you figure out how to fit it all into your thing. Don't worry about it. Just okay.
Yeah, and
Here's
that's
a check.
another good point that you make, Felicia, is a lot of people will say, well, instead of investing in a syndication, I could get an Airbnb and the ROI on my money on an Airbnb is higher than an ROI on a syndication.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. Lots
Yes.
of times it is. But think about the ROI on your time.
Yeah.
In a syndication, like you said, you have to do your due diligence, you make your investment, and then for the 5 years in there, you basically read your monthly reports and you get your tax documents and file your taxes on it. But 5 years of owning an Airbnb, there's a lot more work in that. And so it doesn't mean one is better and one is worse. It means really pay attention to if your goals are time freedom, if your goals are lifestyle freedom, and you're trying to run an Airbnb in New York, but you like want to live in Bali, that doesn't match your goals. You need something that's going to match your goals. But if you're like, hey, I'm going to be in New York for the next 20 years, I'm going to buy an Airbnb. I know I'm going to be here. I don't have a job. I'm just going to run my Airbnb. Then it might be the perfect fit for you. So I always encourage people to look at return on time, not just return on your money when looking at investments. Because,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're a doctor or a lawyer and you can spend an extra 10 hours a week on an Airbnb or on billable hours, probably make more on your billable hours.
Yeah, I mean, but and again, it just depends on what you want. Because I do
Yeah.
know a physician who just spent a lot of time setting up her whole structure around her Airbnbs,
Yeah.
and she was excited. She's like, every time she talks about it, she gets another woman who was sitting at us. We were at dinner and was sitting us like, that sounds like another job. I'm
Yeah.
like, it is another job. If you don't want it, that's not where you want to go.
Yep.
But it is everybody's. If you love it, do it. If you
Yep.
don't, you don't have to. And
Yep.
that what where we go run all the way back to everything doesn't fit. And so you can keep
Right.
spending all your money on all these different things,
Mhm.
the next shiny object by taking your course or looking at your videos. Is that what you're calling it? Your freedom in 3 video series?
Yeah, it's a 3-day series. And so we do it as a live 3-day challenge and we do it several times a year and then we record it. And so it's you opt in and you get the recording sent to you. But it's like how to choose your goals, how to look at 15 different types of investments, choose what fits your goals, learn how to do due diligence. Like you said, the people are most important if you're going to be passive. And people always do it backwards. They look at the project and maybe a bit on the market and not so much the people. And so
Yeah.
I'm like you, I always teach like the people you do major due diligence on the people. If you get that right, you almost don't need to look at anything else. You should always, but
Yeah.
then you look at the market and then you look at the project last. And then really how to understand. So we have ROI calculator, we have due diligence checklists, vocabulary, all that kind of stuff is in that 3-day series. It's only an
It's
hour
really
each day. So it's not 3 full days.
It's really good though, you guys.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's it's right there available. If you are sitting there, there's a QR code to scan into to get in. Takes you right there.
Yep. Takes you right there.
And if you're not sitting there with your phone to do the QR code, I'm gonna have you just say it, but these things are gonna be in your show notes, in the show notes too, guys. So when you're free and you're like, I need to go do this, you'll be able to go do it. How do they get to the site if they're not here with with their phones with a QR code?
Yes, it's freedomin3.com. And it's the number 3.
Number 3.
Freedom in 3, the digit 3.com.
And the N is IN, not just the letter N.
Correct.
freedomin3.com.
Yep.
It'll be in the show notes. Don't panic. Don't pull over. We got you. We there. Don't try to
Oh,
go find your phone, with the kids in gymnastics or whatever the heck you're doing. It'll be there for you.
yeah. So I'll if you don't mind, I will say this. Before I had this series, I had maybe my second year in business. I had over 750 introductory calls with investors,
Okay?
and they all went the same way. It's like, "What are your goals?" Da, 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 da. Like, I felt like a broken record, and I
Uh,
kept making the same suggestions to everyone, and then I was like, "This is not a way to scale. It's not
mhm.
sustainable for me to individually have these one-on-one conversations," and so, the Freedom in 3 series is basically those 45-minute investor we call them strategy call, the 4-point strategy call, and so I basically took that and I put it into a 3-day series so that It's not limited to, do I have calendar availability? It's like,
Yeah.
here's everything that I would go over in a one-on-one call. You can do it yourself. And then we have open Q&A sessions every week where people, after they listen to the series, then they can come to the Q&A and ask me any other questions they have. So it's not pulled out of thin air. It's from 750 investor calls where it's like, all right, I know how people think. Here's what you need to know, etc.
And if your thoughts are a little bit different, there's a Q&A coming up to
Yeah.
answer that. It's like, think about this, you guys. This I'm talking to the doctors out there, the surgeons who you explain the same. I'm thinking of vasectomies in my mind. Like you say the same daggone thing every single time.
Yeah.
And you start to sit drone in your own mind, you sound like blah, 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 like Charlie Brown's teacher up front is what you sound like.
Yeah.
Imagine doing it now, you know what people want to know, and you can be your bright self. It's recorded, you're good to go.
Yeah.
And then if there's questions, you pop in, what questions did you have? Da, da, da,
Yeah.
da. This is beautiful. This is
Yeah.
beautiful. And you can listen to it more than once, catch
Mhm.
what you didn't catch. And then again, the Q&A when you're just like, my situation's not exactly that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Really good. Really good. I love it.
Um,
Thank you so much.
yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you, and you're in San Francisco area, not investing. I just wanna say that again. She lives in California, she doesn't invest in California for a whole lot of reasons. For all you folks that I've talked to are like, "I'm gonna find my first place in California," and I'm looking at you,
Bad choice. Mm-mm, don't do it, guys.
let's really think about something.
What would you like an example horse for?
Yes,
Okay.
let's do it.
So we had a rental and the mortgage was about 10, a single family home, about $10,000 a month. And so we had people living in it who worked one at Apple, one at Facebook. Combined income verified, it was $600,000 a year, combined income verified. Professionals in Silicon Valley. So we're like, great. They stopped paying their rent because during COVID, the county changed the rules, which negated our contract. Now, okay, like, how is that even a thing that is okay for a county to do? We have a contract in place now. So they stopped paying rent. So that's $10,000 a month we have to pay for that property, but they won't leave. And I understand that the rules changed in order to help people who are negatively affected by COVID and lost their jobs. However, that was not these people.
That was not what happened.
They still both had their jobs. They were both working from home. They were still living there. They were still making their $600,000 a year and not paying their rent. And they lived there for almost 9 months without paying. And so we got attorneys and they said, you should probably pay them six to 12 months of rent to move out. And I was like,
Oh
six,
my
60 to
gosh.
$120,000 is how much you think I should pay a tenant to get out of my place. And I was like, I cannot, it's completely against all my principles. So I would not. I was very stubborn. So eventually we put it up for sale. That was the only way to get someone out. So we put it up for sale. So then they said, oh, well, if we have to move out, we're going to buy this house. Can you write a letter to the lender that we've been great and paid our rent on time? And I was like, I will.
Because I want you to I want out of this.
In exchange, you're going to pay me all the back rent by Friday, and you'll be out of the place by Tuesday, whatever the contract said. And then I'll sign the thing for your lender. So they did, which told me they had that cash
Bunch of money.
available because they
Yeah,
came up with it in 5 days and they
yeah.
paid me that 9 months of back rent. So they were just doing it because they could, not because they didn't have the money, not because they were in any sort of hardship, but because they could. And these were people who were not in any sort of despair during COVID, upstanding, great job people at Apple and Facebook, and they're taking advantage of the system. I'll get off my story now,
That's
but
so upstanding people because first of all, I don't know if you heard me gasp, maybe I hit it. $10,000 a month rent? Like, oh my gosh.
well,
That's
no, the mortgage was 10,000. The
the
rent was 6,500. So the rent did not cover the
the
mortgage. That's
mortgage.
California economics.
So, if you wanna be coming out of pocket every month for a property that the tenants can decide not to pay on, so makes you have to come out of pocket more for the possibility that it's gonna appreciate. And it's gonna appreciate, let's just say it's gonna appreciate, but the risk is is it when are you gonna have to sell it, and is it gonna
Right.
be appreciated at that time? Where's
Right.
the market gonna be? That's the gamble of the whole thing,
Right.
bottom line.
Yeah.
and then paying out of pocket every month to have a property for somebody to live in and ruin, and then you got to fix it up, and then you got
Yep. Yep. It cured me of ever wanting to own in California again.
okay, all right, we'll end it on that. I know a lot of people in California who are looking to buy in California, so
Yeah.
let's talk about that again, okay? All
Yeah.
right.
Some people who bought 20 years ago, they have great cash flow. But if you're thinking of investing today, some money, it's not what I would choose.
And that people and not people that bought and then they had their little house that they bought for $50,000 in California that's now worth 3,000,000. They didn't buy it thinking about appreciation. They
No.
bought it because they needed someplace to live,
Yeah.
and now they're lucky and
Mhm.
they
Mm.
have all this and they're leaving California, they're moving to Texas and buying a house that's bigger for less money.
They sure are. Here's a good place to wrap. One of the like most memorable things that one of my coaches said to me was fall in love with the numbers, don't fall in love with the property.
Yeah.
And a lot of new investors, even seasoned investors, make that mistake where they're like, I wouldn't live in that state, or I wouldn't live in that neighborhood, or I wouldn't live in that apartment building. So I'm not going to invest. But the cash flow might be there, the appreciation might be there. So you have to fall in love with the numbers, not the place, because you're not living there.
Yeah.
You're investing for money. You're not investing to live there. It's different,
And
like you just said.
N not to live there, but to and you wanna give people a nice place to live. You're not necessarily
Yes.
gonna keep it a rundown, whatever the
No,
heck. It's a
no.
nice place to live.
Yeah,
My mentor said, "Live where you wanna live and invest where the numbers make sense."
exactly.
Same thing. He's like, "The"
Exactly.
and again, it depends on your goals. If you wanna just invest for appreciation and throw money out the window every month to keep a thing going, you can do that. Neither one of us is gonna say, "Don't do that." Well, I'm gonna
I
say
would
don't
say
do
don't do
that.
that.
We're both gonna say don't do that, but
I'm
you
gonna
can
say
do what you
don't do
wanna
that.
do. You're gonna go to Sarah's 3-day series here and take that, and it's gonna help you really understand what you're looking to do, what you want to accomplish
Yeah,
with your
definitely.
investing. That's the bottom line, and they'll
Definitely.
help you figure out how to do that. Sarah, thank you so much.
It's been so much fun. Thank you,
Really good.
Felicia. Loved
Really
it.
good.
Yep.
Thank you. It's fun.
All right. Bye, everyone. See you soon.